Greetings, it is I, Tantus Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue my discussion on various anime series where I review them, and then give you some suggestions how you can use them in your Big Eye, Small Mouth games, your BESM games. Remember, all this information I'm providing will also help you if you want to adapt it to other role-playing game systems. You might have to move some rules around, but it does give you an idea of how to adapt things. Let's start with our review, as I have two more from the, well, current season as of now. New season's just about to start, but current for now, Chaos Child and Idle Incidents, Idle Jihen. Then we'll go for two more from back in 2015. But let's start with these two from this season with Chaos Child. Now, Chaos Child is technically a sequel to Chaos Head. I'll probably talk about that one separately in its own, because it does work a little differently. This one is set 6 years after the events of there, where an earthquake that had basically devastated Shibuya. Now the earthquake, again, if you watch the little review thing, you know it's not natural. But regardless, Shibuya has rebuilt itself. There was a time during the old series, the new generation murders happened, which were sort of seen as suicide murders. A new generation murders have begun starting up again. So something's going on. We focus on Takuru, a high school senior and president of the school newspaper who garners an interest in these events. And he begins to look into them, and along the way he takes members of his club in order to go and investigate these strange events that are coming on, these strange murders/suicides. And it isn't until that he gets a first-hand encounter with one of them that things begin to change, and he begins to dive deeper into the strange mystery of what's going on. Won't go over any more because I don't want to spoil too much about this. But if you're looking at the genres, it's of course a sci-fi. It is set technically in a world similar to our own, but it has very science fiction feelings with the way that they look upon reality and mind and things like that. It's also a thriller. There's this kind of deep-seated energy that's going on that kind of makes your heart pound, that something dark and sinister is going on deep beneath the surface, more than just these murders, that makes you just kind of go, what's going on? It's also, though, a school. He's president of the school paper, so it focuses on this school idealism of this school life that he's going on. Now, I rate this one a 4. I probably would have rated it higher years ago, especially because I did like Chaos Head a lot. But I think I'd rate Chaos Head 4 now, too. I'll talk about it again in the future. In a future episode, I do hope to review that one. But for now, I think it is similar to it. It's a very good series, but it has this kind of deep thought pattern to it that can get a little confusing. I think that's why I don't quite put it as high. Now, if you're using this in a BESM game, I'd recommend 300 points. You're going to make your characters members of the school newspaper. They're going to be a group from the school newspaper that are going to be looking into these incidents occurring in Shibuya. And along the way, they're going to have to deal with the dangers of dealing with these incidents. Start to deal with the connections it has to the events that occurred during Chaos Head. And of course, deal with the underlying problems that are occurring deep within Shibuya. The kind of interesting things that are the underlying factors of it. I definitely recommend you try to stick to what the anime does. Watch ahead if you're the game master, because you're definitely going to want to know these kind of underlying things that'll help you add those thriller elements. Now, I pride myself in basically choosing anime that are of completely different and odd genres, but this one took the cake for odd. Alright, we're going to talk about Idle Jihen, or Idle Incidents. I'm not against talking and reviewing an idle anime. This one's an interesting one. Let's talk about it. So it's the near future, and Japan is suffering from massive amounts of corruption and problems with the government that it seems that no one can solve. That's where the idle parties come in. Effectively, political parties led by idols, which are coming in and joining the government in order to basically save it. And that's what it is. Political idols. Idle diet women. And we're focusing our series on Natsuki, who's basically a new idle diet woman who's joining in with the government. She's kind of happy-go-lucky, has very straightforward views of the world, and is trying to bring that idealism into politics while still maintaining the status as sort of an idol and performing and doing things like that with other ones. So it's definitely a very interesting one. course, it's got music. There's going to be songs, it's going to be singing. It's always with any kind of music more based anime. It's government. She's in the government. They're going to have that political aspirations, trying to get things done politically. These levels of government work that make sense in it. It's also an idol anime. I don't really review a lot of idol animes. They are more of an unusual one for me to review. But there are big genre that are out there. And so I felt like this one's weird enough for me to mention, because I feel like I always talk about the more unusual ones. Now, I did watch a good chunk of it, and I do have to say, I thought it wasn't terrible. It does have some interesting storylines, and it was an interesting take on a genre that can be pretty cut and dry, straightforward. You've got a bunch of idols, just singing, dancing, things like that, maybe trying to compete with each other. This one's pretty simple because it's, politics. So I did rate this one a 3. It's interesting enough to, draw me in, just with a strange premise. Now, if you're using this in a BESM game, I recommend 140 points. You're going to make all your characters members of the exact same idol political party. They're effectively all going to have the same politics. Generally speaking, you might want to come up with a list of policies that they're going to try to be following. They're going to have their performances. They're going to have their time in government. And you're sort of going to try to balance out the two of these that they're going to have, of course, their idol side and their government side. And you might want to come up with role-playing opportunities for both of these. Of course, they will deal with the other rival idol political parties. They'll deal with other politicians, which might be their more normal career politicians that they also try to compete with. And they'll also try to deepen the bonds between each other as basically performing idols, but also as members of the same political party. And other just members in general, because they won't be the only members of the political party. You'll have some other ones in there too, and you want to deepen the bonds between them also within your storyline. Now let's talk about the two from the past, Witchcraft Works and Aldnoah.Zero. Let's start with Witchcraft Works. We focus on Honoka, this high school boy who just tries to be generally normal. He doesn't think anything different. The only unusual thing is that he tends to be closely associated with this school idol, Ayaka. Basically, by sheer chance, his life revolves around being near her, much to the chagrin of her fan club, which tends to try to beat him up. So one day, on his way home from school, he basically gets attacked by an evil witch. And this fire mage, this fire witch, comes and protects him, who turns out to be Ayaka. So now it's sort of the cat's out of the bag that she's been sort of there protecting him all along. And the fact is that he has some kind of sleeping power deep within them. That these two battling factions of witches, workshop witches and tower witches, are battling out for. And of course now he's sort of allied with the workshop witches, which is what Ayaka is, and trying to get them to basically protect him against the kind of aggressive advances of the tower witches. And that's where our main storyline goes. It's an action series. They have big magical battles with explosions and fire and giant things. It's supernatural. They've got witches, sometimes strange creatures, animated dolls, interesting things like that. And it's magic. Witches. They kind of go hand in hand. Supernatural, magic, they really kind of do. Not all the time, but this one especially it does because they're witches. They cast lots of spells, huge magical abilities. I rate this one a 4. It's actually a really interesting one. It's very entertaining, big cool battle scenes, and it's sort of this kind of reverse Cinderella almost, because Honoka is this squirrely little guy who's really nice, but effectively just the one that's being saved all the time. So it's kind of, he's the princess, and Ayaka is the prince in this situation, which makes it a very interesting reversal from a lot of normal situations. Now, if you're using this in a BESM game, I can recommend 500 points. You're going to make your characters a group of workshop witches. They're effectively going to be assigned some kind of important NPC to protect. Now, this NPC could be aware of them, might not be. In the course of the series, they might become aware of their witcher detectors. It's hard to say how you want to exactly do this. If you want to have a more unknown knowledge, kind of like Honoka is at the beginning of the series, or sort of dive right into them knowing about it. Regardless, they're going to be opposed by tower witches and basically try to protect this NPC. For whatever reasons you want to establish, could keep some similar to what is in the series, or come up with your own reason to protect it. Your tower witches, of course, are going to have relations in some way to this character. How those relations are, up to you entirely also to develop. You could develop similar relations to the characters they have in the anime, or you could come up with others. You could have basically very loose connections. Maybe they just know each other from school. Basically, maybe, oh, they were friends in elementary school. Something simple like that that means they have a pretty separated connection. Or it could be something closer like Ayaku, who tends to really like Honoka. You could have that sort of relationship between the two of them. And the course of the series, they of course will be opposing these tower witches, which will go on the attack. But they'll also deal with other workshop witches, maybe, you know, getting along with them peacefully or being kind of rivals with them, maybe training up their powers a little bit more, maybe helping train someone else, maybe if it becomes sort of like Honoka, who wants to learn how to use some magic to defend himself, they might do the same thing for this NPC, your characters. Hard to say. It's going to be developing these relationships also, because it's going to also develop the relationships between your PCs and your important NPC. So let's talk about Aldnoah.Zero. So this series takes place, we start off in 1970s, where a hypergate, a piece of powerful technology, is found on the moon. A number of people use it to begin to colonize Mars, where more technology is found. They declare independence and becomes known as the BESM Empire. Eventually, though, there is a basic war that breaks out between Earth and the BESM Empire. There is an explosion on the moon, shattering it and destroying it, causing massive damage to Earth, but also separating out these members from the Vers that were attacking Earth from, basically, Mars. These orbital knights, which are banished here, we sort of stew in their own juices, hoping to finish it off, but they've been sort of asked to basically look after things. We fast forward to 2014, in which the Princess of Vers is attempting to make peace with Earth. She is attempted to be assassinated, and people think that she is. The result of this sees the war break out again, with the orbital knights using it as an excuse. We focus, of course, on this princess, and Inako, this young boy who's basically dragged into the war, and promises to protect this princess in hopes of regaining peace. And his basically powerful ability to analyze situations and come up with ways, basically forming a bond with her in a way, by accident, he gains some of the abilities to unlock various armors that these special, basically, robot armors he's using, to match with some of the Vers armors, and basically help fight out against them with the combination of his squad, and hopefully defeat them. This is, of course, an action series. Big giant robot battles, wars, explosions, you know, it's action. It's also mecha. They have giant robots. Of course it's mecha. As soon as you see giant robots, you gotta say mecha. And sci-fi. It's set in this alternate history where super technology was discovered on Mars and an entire other civilization was formed there with the hopes of basically probably conquering Earth back because they feel themselves superior, generally speaking. Not all of them do. We see that the princess isn't so bad. Now I rate this one a 4. There are some moments in it that kind of made it hard for me to finish up the series, but it was very worth it. There was a midpoint in it, basically, that had a very, like, heart hit you kind of mid-season finale kind of thing. And then when they finally finished up the other half of the series, it's like, where are you going to go from this one? Oh, you went that direction. Wow. And it ends up in such a way that makes you like, wow, that's quite an ending. I think that's one of the reasons that I think it was a great series, and also detracted me from it, because I'm not big on that type of ending. The type of, like, hit you, make you think about a little bit, make you feel like, you want something a little more ideal in an ending. And this feels a lot less ideal in the ending. It's still good, you know, not bad stuff ending, I'd say, but it's still not a great one. Characters don't end up in the best situations you think that they're going to end up. Now, if you're using it in a BESM game, I recommend 350 points. Make them a group of students that are drugged into this war, and for whatever reason, you can establish one similar to the one in the anime, or something completely different. They find themselves in a position that they are able to oppose the Vers. Basically, they are able to start defeating their various weapons, their mechs, and they're able to help Earth fight against this Martian threat, which is attempting to effectively destroy them. So you can see you're going to mimic the anime to a degree, and you're probably going to want something similar to the princess, because the princess tends to be a MacGuffin sort of thing. It is. She can unlock the power, the potential of Vers technology. Most humans can't. So you see, you need something like that a little bit, so that they give that little edge to your players, so that they can fight against these very powerful vehicles and get that edge. And it will be much more of a game of cat and mouse. They can't beat them in a direct fight. They have to come up with a very interesting way of defeating them. Clever plans are going to be the key to all the victories they're going to have in this adventure. So that's it for today. I introduced you to 4 more series. Of course, 2 from this season, which is beginning to end, and 2 from back in 2015, heading towards 2014. All these series are very interesting, very different genres. I try to vary what I talk about for types of anime. But the point is, I'm introducing you to them, reviewing them, and letting you know some ways that you can use them in your BESM games. This doesn't mean you just have to use it for BESM. You can easily adapt the concepts to another role-playing game system. You're not going to use the same points. You're going to come up with completely different ways of building characters. And the mechanics part is going to be up to you to adapt it. But the storyline, that's where we're staying the same if you're going to use these. And you very easily can. So I would definitely recommend checking out doing those, because these are very interesting worlds that you can definitely use. Of course, I like to say stick with BESM, but your choice. Anyway, if you have any questions, comments, anything you want to say, anything you think I left out, please leave in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. It should support the channel, the empire, the work I do. If you want to show some extra support, you can always check out my Patreon, link in the description below. Regardless, until the next time, I bid you farewell.